never to hear from again. And that was the only mission I had ever flown with Hank Cecil Van Horn. One mission, voluntary mission, wasn't my airplane. So now you fast forward 30, 35 years, Christmas Eve. Hey, thanks for saving me. We're still in constant contact. My name is Larry Shatto. I'm a retired Chief Warrant Officer, 21 years in the Army. I've been flying in helicopters since 1969. I got 11 years in the back of Hueys as an enlisted guy, as a crew chief, maintained the airplane and kept it flying, that sort of thing, and then flew missions basically on the same airplane. Crew chiefs are assigned a particular tail number that they're responsible for, so their entire time that they're flying, unless the airplane is mechanically unsound and not airworthy anymore, or in my case, in one case, the airplane shot down and destroyed, you usually maintain that same airplane the whole time. That's the only one you fly. Periodically, for whatever reason, you may have to step in and volunteer, which the standard answer, never volunteer, is truthful. The 2 times I got shot down, I volunteered to fly somebody else's airplane. So when they tell you don't volunteer, unless you're that hero type that goes on a suicide mission, don't volunteer, guys, okay? Because it never turns out the way you wanted it to. So most all of my time is in aircraft 6616605 or 6616484. And the difference is 484 was a slick, meaning it hauled troops and supplies and anything and everything you can do in a Huey, you did in a slick. 605 was a gunship, Charlie model Huey gunship, and obviously that it was an attack mission, gunship mission. A big difference, the 2 times I got shot down, once was in a smoke ship, which basically flew around the LZ and trailed smoke so that you covered the LZ so that the enemy couldn't see where you were landing or where the good guys were. Our mistake was we got wrapped around the axle, flying into the smoke, couldn't see, flew out of the smoke and got shot down. The second time I got shot down, it was covering a medevac type mission, and we call them one-shot Charlies. It's a bad guy that jumps up, takes one shot, jumps back in a hole, and runs away, whatever. He only needed one shot, and it hit our engine, and we crashed and destroyed the airplane. Fortunately, it wasn't mine. That was the second time I volunteered to do that mission. After the smoke ship incident, that's when I decided, well, if I'm going to get shot at, I'm going to be in an airplane that can shoot back. So I love you guys to death in the slicks, but I'm going to the gun platoon. So I spent the first 4 months in 1969 in the back of a Huey slick, and then the last 8 months I spent, well, last 7 months, because the last month I didn't fly, and I'll tell you about that later. So I spent the last 7 months in the back of a Huey gunship. When I finished Vietnam in '69, I came back home, and like I said, 11 years as an enlisted guy. I'm at that 11-year mark. Am I going to get out of the Army? Am I going to stay in? I'm coming home every day complaining to the wife about, this was in the 70s, so I did a lot of babysitting on young soldiers, drugs, alcohol, trouble, the Vietnam War reflection, and I was just getting tired of babysitting young soldiers as an NCO, and that's not right. You can't do that as an NCO. And then the pilots I was flying with, a few of them were Vietnam vets, most of them were not, so they were what we call slick sleeve. They don't have a combat patch on the right side. And I'd come home and complain about the soldiers I had to deal with, and the pilots, they were going to kill me because they weren't nearly as good as the Vietnam vet guys. So it was at that point the wife told me, well, if we're going to stay in, you need to go ahead and go to flight school like you've been whining about. So at 29, which was the maximum age in 1979, at 29 I went to flight school, and then so that gives me another 9-10 years, and I spent just about 10 years, total of 21, spent 10 years as a warrant officer. When I finished flight school in 1970, and the reason I went to flight school is because those guys, Captain Roger Mothersbaugh, and we'll talk about him in a minute, Captain Roger Mothersbaugh, Bruce Schaefer, a number of guys. I can name them all, but we don't have time. Those guys are what pushed me to stay in Army Aviation and go to flight school. So flight school finishes, now what? Well, I flip-flopped and got into gunships, which makes sense. So I started flying the Cobra gunship. I came out of flight school, went to the Cobra AQC, or Aircraft Qualification Course. And then after AQC, I went to the TOW course, which is a tube optically tracked wire guided missile system, one of the armament systems on the Cobra. And then after that, it was to Fort Eustis, Virginia for AMOC, which is Aviation Maintenance Officers Test Pilot Course. So when I came out of flight school, I was Cobra qualified, I was TOW qualified, and I was test pilot qualified. The first unit I went to was 7th ID at Fort Ord, California. My first request. And so I got my request, I went where I wanted to go, and when I walked in the door, you report to the commander. Warrant Officer 1, Shatto reports, and I'm squinting my eyes going, where do I know this guy from? Major Richard Diamond. And as it turns out, he's got my 201, my personnel file in front of him. He's reading all, and he knows my whole history. And he says, as it turns out, he says, you were in the 176, 1969. Yes, I was, sir. He said, I was the platoon commander in the 71st, which is our sister company, not right across town, on the other side of Chulai. And he said, we served at the same time, probably flew missions together, because I was a gunship platoon leader too. So we got to talking about that, and he says, you're going to be my test pilot. I said, sir, I just finished test pilot. I can identify a Cobra, but I test fly. So he sent me and the maintenance officer and the instructor out, and we spent a couple hours learning how to test fly that they just taught me, but I'm a brand new guy. So the time goes on, and a really, really, really important guy, W4, a god to us W1s, walks in the door and points, he gets a word on me, the new test pilot, go meet the new test pilot. And he points at me and goes, you're going to be my test pilot? You're for my, no, that's not going to work. I'm the armament guy and a maintenance officer, and you got to go through. So he took me out and just put me through the ringer. If I'm going to be a test pilot with him, he's going to show me how to do it. So that's Robichard, and that's Diamond, and that's Mothersbaugh, and that's why I went the route that I went. So now,
Chad Robichard?
No. Ridenauer, Chuck Ridenauer. And he had a history. He was the first aviator to fire a Hellfire missile from a Cobra and a TOW missile from a Cobra. So he's got a history. Everybody knew Chuck Ridenauer. And so the bottom line is, we get done with all of that, and which direction am I going to go? 21 years in the Army. I spent 11 enlisted, 10 as a warrant, and not all, but most all of my 6 years in the Cobra, 1,200 hours. 25 plus years in Apaches, which we'll get to, 2,500 hours in Apaches, and another 25 years. Because what happened is 89, when I retired in 1989, I got a job. There was a storm came through Fort Hood and destroyed 300 or 400 airplanes. I mean, it was Mother's Day massacre is what we called it. About $750, $800 million worth of damage. I was the brigade maintenance officer in charge of 120 airplanes, and I had to report twice a day to the brigade commander the status of all airplanes, which ones are up and down and whatever. And I had already put my paperwork in to retire at 21 years, and working substantial hours, but not as bad as everybody talks. And I said, no, it's time for me to go. So I literally walked across the airfield as a W3, retired with 21 years, got a job with the DOD, Department of Defense contractors that had to contract to maintain all of these airplanes. And that was airplanes for the helicopters. That's all I do is helicopters. 1st Cav Division, 4th Infantry Division, the 3rd Air Cavalry Regiment, and any aircraft that belonged to 3 Corps. And we covered the 10-state area, so any aircraft that had maintenance problems within 10 states is where we went to recover or fix that airplane. So responsible for a bunch of airplanes. Pulled ripcord, Yale Geronimo, and I'm retiring. Walked across the airfield and got a job as a test pilot flying Cobras and Apache helicopters for the Army still, for the same guys I've been flying with. And I'd come to work every Monday, smiling ear to ear. Larry, why are you smiling all the time? Break it down for you. I don't have to fly at night, okay? I don't have to fly in bad weather. I don't have to go to gunnery, which is the only thing I really, really miss, okay? Going down range and shooting stuff up. So no night flight, no bad weather flight, no weekends, which is kind of a lie because every other week somebody would break in Louisiana or out in the field somewhere here at Fort Hood, and I'd have to go out and recover the airplane. Every once in a while I'd go to the field and pick it up. No weekend duty like that. No field trips, anything like that. So
none of those things
anymore. I don't have to do that stuff anymore. And as far as the pay, I was making about the same as a retired W-3 makes as a contractor. The difference, and I like to joke, and excuse my French, I like to joke about my retirement check went in this pocket and my prostitute check or my contractor check would go in this pocket. Why wouldn't I smile? Okay, so that's how I got involved. That's when I retired and got involved in test flying airplanes for the Army. And that, again, that's 21 years. And the 25 part of it, 89, I continued flying Apaches, legacy A model Apaches, AH-64As, and then the longbow, which is the AH-64D longbow, came out. And in 98, I went to the AQC, Aircraft Qualification Course, for the longbow, and it came back here to Fort Hood. I've been at Fort Hood since '85, and have never left except to go to training or a school of some sort. But I've never been away more than a month or two, except Desert Storm, where we're required by contract to supply a contact team when these units go to the field. First Cav goes to Desert Storm. We send a 40-man contingent to support them while they're in Desert Storm. So I went over with the first Cav, lived in the tent with the troops. We didn't stay in the hotel like Dynacorp did. Well, I was 20 years old in Vietnam and 29 years old when I went to flight school, 39, 40 when I went to the longbow transition, all that neat stuff. So now you fast forward, Desert Storm's done, and DS2, Desert Storm 2 comes up, 2001 to whatever year it was, I mix them all up. And I'm kind of obligated again to go down, but it's voluntary to go down. Of course, you lose your job if you don't go, but, and I was ready to go again. And the wife says, 2 wars is enough. Vietnam, yeah, I've got a Purple Heart, but I got my Purple Heart on that second shoot down when they shot down the gunship I was in. It was a pretty ugly crash, and we destroyed the airplane. The pilot, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. Pilot bit his tongue, and to this day I still think of the cartoon characters when they do a crash or something and they got the tongue hanging out. He bit his tongue almost in half, almost lost the first half of his tongue. So he was hurt pretty bad. The co-pilot climbed out through the windshield or the greenhouse, which is basically a sunglasses. It's a green shield square window on the roof. That's how he got out, and he cut the living daylights out of his arm climbing out of the airplane. I was sitting on the left side, Charlie Model Huey gunship. The crew chief and the door gunner sit on the back against the wall, right next to the door. So the door's open, obviously, because we got our guns and shoot them up, bang, bang. The armament system has got a rocket pod that's about 3.5, 4 feet below you, and a minigun that's about 2 or 3 feet below you, and it's about maybe 2 or 3 feet away from you. Well, when we crashed and bounced and rolled and all this other neat stuff, that minigun, 6-barreled Gatling gun, that minigun broke, rocket pod broke loose and rockets went everywhere. The minigun got busted into the cockpit, hit me in the knee. Had it gone off, it would have blown my leg off from the knee down. It would have went through the cockpit and killed the co-pilot. Okay, so thank goodness the barrels didn't rotate and the gun didn't go off. But it banged up my knee a little bit and cut me on the back of the leg. So that was the extent of injuries to the 3 of us. However, Hank, the door gunner, 35 years later, Hank, the door gunner, calls me back from Florida on Christmas Eve, okay? And he thanks me for flying with him on the last mission of his in Vietnam. And I'm trying to think, who is this Cecil? Who is this Cecil? I didn't know a Cecil Van Horn. And as it turns out, it was Hank in Vietnam. So I was trying to figure out who this guy was, and last mission in Vietnam, and he explained, yeah, we were on 603 in September of '69. Oh yeah, I remember that now. Well, Hank had loosened his seatbelt up. We moved around a lot. He had loosened his seatbelt enough and didn't have time, and he tied a knot in the seatbelt so he couldn't cinch it down and make it tight. No reason to. We're not going to crash. Well, he crashed. So his loose seatbelt resulted in him being thrown out of the airplane after the first bounce, and then back into the airplane after the second bounce. So he had a black and blue bruise from his waistline all the way up both sides of his back to his shoulder blades, black and blue. And when the airplane rolled the last time, it rolled almost 90 degrees.
You mean helicopter?
Helicopter, I'm sorry. We always refer to them as airplanes. It bounced once right front, bounced up, bounced left. It's like the Goonie birds that come in and look so graceful, and they're just screaming along, and they're going to land, rah, rah, and then they land, and they're going 3 times faster than their feet, okay? So they tumble and flip, and that was us in 603. We bounced right front, bounced back up, left front, bounced back up, left rear, rolled over on the right, and the airplane rolled over and crushed Hank's ankle and his foot. I mean, crushed the living, we're lucky he didn't lose it. And it was so bad, and he was trapped underneath the aircraft, the Huey, the helicopter. It took 2 of us, and I can't even remember who did. I think the pilots were doing the lifting. But we got the airplane to rocking, and I pulled Hank out from underneath the airplane, pulled him aside. And then we drug him, carried him, did whatever. And fortunately there was airplanes above us, helicopters, and they landed to pick us up. So we weren't on the ground getting one-shot Charlie, so he's not gonna shoot at us on the ground. There's no bad guys around. So no matter of 3 minutes, 3 or 4 or 5 minutes at maximum, we got over to the slick that had been there to pick us up. And off we went. We go back to the hospital, dropped us all off, and they sent the 3 of us back, here's a Band-Aid, here's a thing for your tongue, and your knee looks fine, and rah-rah. Sent us back to the unit. Hank went to the hospital for surgery on his foot. And I was flying the next day, not the next day, it was 3 days. But I did not get to see Hank at the hospital before he went to Japan, because he was only there 24 hours in Chulai. And then he went off to Japan, and he got medevaced home. Never to hear from again. And that was the only mission I had ever flown with Hank, Cecil Van Horn, one mission, voluntary mission, wasn't my airplane. So now you fast forward 30, 35 years, Christmas Eve. Hey, thanks for saving me. We're still in constant contact. Went to the reunion a few years ago and saw him and a couple of the other guys from our unit. There were about 20 of us that went down to Florida for the 20th reunion. Earlier we spoke, I think John was speaking about the VHPA, Vietnam Helicopter Pilots Association, 20-year reunion. That's for pilots from Vietnam. It didn't include, they don't allow us crew chief enlisted guys to join. You can be auxiliary member, but bottom line, I knew the president, he was one of our pilots in 176th. So they invited me and Hank and a couple other enlisted guys. So we went down there in Florida and had a ball. We've heard a lot of interviews today, and we got stories galore, and every story leads to another story. All our stories are the same. And basically, when you start talking about war stories, I have fun with the new generation, this generation of soldiers going off to fight a war, rah, rah, rah. Or they've been there and they're coming back and they're telling their war stories. I can literally, and we've done this, all of us have done this, a guy will start a story about Iraq, Afghanistan, and he'll make it about halfway through that story, and we will interrupt him and say, I'll tell you what, why don't you let me finish your story, and then you tell me how far off I am from your story. So we'll finish his story from our experiences in Vietnam in 1969, 70, 71, and it finishes his story almost perfectly. Well, how did you know all of that? You weren't there, you weren't in Iraq. Well, I was, not at the same time. I said, I'm here to tell you the stories, the war stories are kind of all the same, but it's jungle instead of desert. It's a Huey instead of an Apache. Okay, so the stories all remain. So to tell these guys what would I advise them? I said, take as many pictures as you can, videos, save those memories, because I guarantee you, 30 years from now, some old vet like myself is going to hit upon your hat and ask you, when were you in Iraq? How do you know I was in Iraq? It's your hat, it's your patch, it's your unit. So we get to talking, and that guy's going to ask you stories, and he's going to tell you stories, and he'll pull out a picture of some old weaselly old guy. Your name is Johnson? I knew a Johnson in Vietnam in 1969. My dad's name Johnson. So the connection is there, and he will ask you about pictures. And your family will ask you about pictures. You won't talk to the family. You won't talk to friends. You will only tell your war stories to other folks like us because we understand. We've been there. So the kicker is remember those stories, repeat those stories, obviously to the rest of us that understand, because we will listen. Family will listen out of curiosity more than anything else. The general public, they could care less what you did in the war. Okay, they're not going to listen, be disrespectful or whatever it is. But remember those stories so that you can tell them, and you need to tell them, this is why Susan is doing what she is doing. It's important. These stories must get out. The legacy must continue, and not just continuing your legacy after you pass on. You only die twice, right? Once when your soul leaves your body and goes to heaven, and the second time is when people stop talking about you. So educate America, educate the general public, and educate everybody else that you can. Tell your stories, because we'll listen. That way, my life, I will never die, because the legacy continues. Because say their name, never forget. So as far as advising young kids, I'm in an organization with T2V. Google it, Tribute to Valor. What we do is we'll get important people, Medal of Honor. We work underneath the flag of the Medal of Honor Foundation. What we will do is we will take a couple of Medal of Honor recipients. We'll take movie stars, sports superstars, really big name people from Hollywood, big superstars that are supportive, Medal of Honor recipients, Gold Star family members. Gold Star families are those families that have lost a loved one, whether it be a mom, a dad, a husband, wife, whatever, that have been killed primarily in combat. But Gold Star family members are those that have lost a loved one, and we support them. We don't do enough to support Gold Star families, period, zip. We ask for it. We're warriors, we're killers, assassins, government mercenaries, whatever you want to say about me and what I did in the military is fine with me. Well, it's not fine, but like Lowell said, argue that point and you've made an enemy quickly. But I'll carry on that conversation. Do not bring that topic up in that tone when I'm standing next to Gold Star wife with 2 kids, because they didn't ask for it. We did. So I'm real protective of Gold Star families. So we will bring people like Gold Star family members to speak. We'll bring CEOs, movie stars, professional sports. That's the wow factor to get to these kids. And we'll go out and go primarily middle school kids and high schools. The college, they're formatted and they're fixed. But we go to these schools and with these kind of people in the panel, and we'll talk to these kids about the 6 traits that the Medal of Honor Foundation lives by. 6 traits, characters, and that is courage, sacrifice, citizenship, patriotism, community service. Those values, if you live by those values and turn your life towards those and living under that, it comes from the heart, and you will reach that fork in the road. You'll know which way to go because you live by these values that the foundation promotes. We went to Grapevine, I think it was Grapevine, Texas, up by Dallas. I don't even know what it is, a Title 12 school, and they're not gonna have any money to fulfill their dreams. Okay, so the less fortunate kids at the high school age, 1,200, plus or minus a few hundred, it's my story, I'll embellish. So at least 1,000, 1,200 kids in the and they're typical high school kids. They're texting and they're talking and chatting and laughing and carrying on. On stage, we've got, I'll get through this. We've got 2 Tuskegee Airmen, and I don't have to explain what Tuskegee Airmen. If you don't know, Google Tuskegee Airmen. We got 2 of those guys on the stage. We've got an African American lieutenant colonel that's a squadron commander of an F-18 squadron in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We've got the number 3 guy at American Airlines, African American. Everything that happens at American Airlines goes through him except for scheduling pilots. Okay, he's an important guy, civilian, CEO, that business guy. And we've got the commander guy. And then we've got Gary Linfoot with his eyeball wheelchair and paralyzed and his story. Then we've got 2 local Well, they're full grown. One was a Caucasian E6 female Air Force sergeant that lost her arm in a motorcycle accident. We've got a African American, I think she was early 20s. She had lost her leg in combat, and she was a Dunbar High School state champion for like 2 years running before she joined the military. That's our panel on stage. Fast forward, and there's question and answer period. Kids all ask, nobody wants to ask a question. Nobody. Finally somebody stands up and asks a question, we answer the question. Okay, anybody else? And this young lady's 17, 18 years old, African American, very back row, I mean, way back in the back. She had to yell in order for us to hear her. Somebody finally get her mic. So she says, I don't have a question. I'll get through this, Sue. I don't have a question, I have a statement. She had done her homework on Tuskegee Airmen, probably done a report on them. So she knew what she was talking about when it comes to Tuskegee Airmen. She knew what they did. Not just what they did as African Americans, what they did in the war. World War II, they were kind of special. So she says, I just have a statement, and she went on, not on and on. She only spoke for 2 minutes, but everything was on these two guys. So she gets all done, and my dream is to be a pilot. Like him. So she gets all done, that's my dream. And she says, thank you, appreciate your time, appreciate you coming, thank you for your service. Goes back, sits down. Okay, the next guy up is that number 3 guy, American Airlines. Big, heavy set. I mean, tell you, he steps up on the stage, and in no uncertain terms, no bad language, you can't use bad language, but in no uncertain terms, he told those young kids, and they had gotten back in, she wasn't listening to this and that, they were texting and talking and carrying on, and he told them to shut up. What I'm about to tell you comes from my heart. It's serious, and it means this. And he went on to his bio. I'm a millionaire, I'm the number 3, and rah, rah, rah. He's a big dude. And he says, now where is that young lady just spoke? Now she thinks she's in trouble. Come here. So now he's got to convince her to come down to the stadium, turns her around so she faces the rest of these kids. Now it's getting silent. What's he going to do? What's he going to say to her? Whatever. And he puts his hand on her shoulder, and he says, this lady is going to make it. This is why we're here. She has a dream, and she's working hard at it, and you can tell from her heart and her tears. She's going to be successful. Okay, and then he turns around again, pulls out his business card, and writes down his personal phone number, okay, gives the card back to her, and he says, lady, when you graduate from high school, you're going to college, if I can. I hope so. You know, the old standard, how am I going to do this? She says, you're going to college. We will help you out. Now, I don't know how yet, but we'll figure this out later on. We will help you out. You'll go to college. When you finish your college and get your degree, I would recommend aeronautical engineering or somewhere along those lines, and concentrate on math, okay? Because when you finish college, you call that number on the back of that card, and we will send you to flight school. We will do what we can to fulfill your dream. And it's going to take a while. You still got 6 months a year before you graduate high school, 4 years, maybe 5 years in college, and in a year or 2 in training. But in 6, 7 years, you could be a captain of 747 flying for me. And if I'm gone, you'll be flying for somebody else. That, folks, is what you all need to be determining today when you finish. Set your dream, work towards that dream, and you'll be successful. The Vietnam vets came home, and I personally only ran across one instance where somebody said something negative about what I did. And because I was in AmeriCal division, which is the division that Lieutenant Cali, this is history stuff. AmeriCal division, blue shield, 4 white stars. Colin Powell was a commander and advisor. General Schwarzkopf was a commander and advisor. Both of those general officers were in AmeriCal division, just about the same time, plus or minus a year, when my line, Lieutenant Cali, murdered, and his men murdered all of us, and he went to jail, and it was atrocious, okay? But those were the stories that came out of Vietnam, because if it bleeds, it leads in the papers. So that's all you heard about. That's all you read about, the terrible things. So everybody came out of Vietnam was a drug addict, suffering PTSD. He was a wacko. He wanted to kill everybody in the world. He was a warmonger, robber. BS, just flat out BS. Okay, look at the stats. Look at the history of Vietnam vets, what they've done. And so all of us will never allow, I will never again allow the American, I don't care who you are, what your stat, you can be an uppity up, okay? If you start badmouth the Vietnam vet, or especially the current vets, Iraq and Afghanistan, you start badmouthing them and say the things to them that you said to us when we came back, I won't stand for it. They did the same thing I did. They're serving their nation, they're fighting. And again, you hear the story about why did you go to war, and mom, the flag, and apple pie. That's kind of true, but for the most part, once you get in there and a bullet start flying, you're not there fighting for the flag and the apple pie, okay? You're there for the guy next to us. As a gunship guy, my job was not to kill the enemy, okay? My job was to protect American soldiers. So every time I went out in a gunship, I was there to service targets, not to kill people, okay? So the old World War II B-29 bomber or B-17 bomber, how many people did you kill? Obviously I killed somebody. I bombed Dresden, firebombed it. So they asked me that, how many people? I don't know that I killed anybody in particular, but did I service targets? Did I shoot at people on the ground? Yes, because that guy was about to kill 10 Marines or 10 soldiers. So yeah, we serviced a target. Do I feel bad about the injuries or the death that I'm sorry. I don't. I'll cross that bridge when I get to it, the pearly gates. The bottom line is the guy that shot me down and almost killed me, I had a chance to shoot him. I was told not to. That's fine and dandy. That guy could walk up to me today and explain and tell that story of my shoot down. You're the one that shot me down? Good job. And I could shake his hand, hug him, and thank him for his service, because he was doing what I was doing for his country. Okay, so he was just a warrior and a soldier, and I respect him for that. There was no animosity. 2 times, the entire 12 months I was in Vietnam, there's 2 times that I can think of that I was angry enough to really want to kill somebody. And it was that one time where that guy shot me down, and I just said, I can shake his hand and hug him now. 2 days after that shoot down, oh no. If I'd ever run across him, I'd not cut his throat, but we would not have a friendly argument, discussion. The other time, death in Vietnam. We lost 10 guys, and I could go into 10 different stories, but I will not tell you the story of all 10 guys. I can give you their names, but out of those 10 guys, 1 committed suicide. We'll get to that in a minute. 1 committed suicide. 5 died in an aircraft accident. They took off in a flare ship and bad weather, and they got into the clouds and they lost their spatial orientation, and they got vertigo, and the airplane turned upside down, crashed, blew up, and killed all 5. So that's 6. The 4 that we lost in combat, directly due to enemy shooting them down, they flew between 2 twin 50 caliber machine guns on top of ridge lines, and they flew down the valley and it shot them down. All the radio traffic that went across the radios that day was on hot mic. That means everybody tuned to that frequency on that radio heard it. So it was war story stuff, screaming and hollering and mayday calls, rah rah, all the way to the ground, because they knew they were dying. Tell mom I said goodbye, rah rah rah, help me, help me. All that stuff is on tape. And the air hit, blew up, lost all 4 of them. So a good 2 or 3 weeks after that, Larry was one mad SOB. So those are the only 2 incidences where I really thought about, this is what I need to do. The rest of the time, I'm supporting that soldier on the ground. Everything he does. I've had people approach me about October of '69. I was here. I got a Silver Star. Yeah, I read about you getting. We're hometown buddies. Didn't know us in high school. He graduated a year or 2 before me. Didn't know us in high school. He was infantry. I was aviation, so we never crossed paths. He gets a Silver Star and comes home, and we're having a beer. And so I remember that. I asked him about Silver Star, and he starts going into the mission. And he goes, I remember that. He says, yeah. Our track hit a bomb, or an IED nowadays, hit a bomb, blew up, caught on fire, and all my guys are in the back of this track. So I had to pull I got the Silver Star because I pulled 4 or 5 guys out of the back of this burning track. And that's why they gave me a Silver Star. And we all got banged up, burned up, rah. But the bottom line, the reason I got the star and the reason I was able to pull those guys out of that burning track is because the muskets were overhead, flying gunship support. And every rocket you fired, and every minigun bullet that came out of your gun, and every M60 round you put on the ground kept the bad guy's head down long enough for me to run to that burning track, pull his guns out. That was a warrior hug moment. So those are the stories we like to relate. And those are the stories that we've got to carry on and tell folks about. So now brings up suicide. How did that happen? I'll make it through this. Warrant Officer Bruce Schaefer was the first warrant officer I flew with in January of '69 in the slicks. And we were flying a mission. It doesn't matter how that mission went, but it ended up in Shatto getting the chewing of his lifetime at the end of that mission about rules of engagement and about how to fire an M60 from the back of a Huey without shooting the aircraft down, and a few other things. So to say it was a significant encounter, it was. It made an impact on this young 20-year-old new guy. So now we fast forward, that was January, and we fast forward February, and that combat loss. McAllister was the pilot on that aircraft. McAllister and Schaefer from elementary school, high school, a little bit of college, then flight school, and then almost 10 months, plus or minus, in Vietnam together. So to say they were close is not an exaggeration. They were pretty tight. McAllister gets shot down and is killed. Bruce Schaefer goes off the deep end over stress and the whole 9 yards. He was one of those turnaround PTSD that I'm going to kill the world. Slicks have a machine gun on each side, door gunner and crew chief. That's the only armament they've got on board. Pilots fly. Aircraft commander flies in, and then on short final or when we're about to land, they'll pass the controls to the co-pilot to fly, so he can gain experience on how to fly. And then he'll stay close to the controls in case something goes wrong. So they're doing this mission, rah. And those last 2 weeks, or 2 weeks before his death, 2 weeks after McAllister's death, Bruce quit flying the airplane for the most part. And instead of doing what they normally do, he would pull out his personal weapon. He does not help prep the LZ that we're fixing to land in, whether it's a cold LZ or hot and bullets are flying. We don't need his help to prep the LZ. We got rockets and guns and rah. And the bottom line, he takes his personal weapon out and he shoots 1 round at a time. Bloop, with an M79. Bloop, and he's gonna help. He's gonna kill the enemy. So that's his mindset. And then we fast forward 2 weeks later, they're playing poker in the officer's hooch. He's playing M16, Russian roulette with an M16. Impossible. No, that's not the weapon you want to play, okay? Rounds in the gun, it's going to go off. He shoots himself in the head. I'm coming back, doesn't matter where I was. I'm about to walk into my hooch at, 11:30, 12:30 at night, and the door flies open, almost knocks me over. Platoon sergeant says, Shatto, go get your airplane ready. We got a medevac headshot right now. You don't need guns, just go to your airplane, get it ready. So I run out and untie the blades, rah. The crew chief from a separate flight platoon shows up to be my quote-unquote gunner. He's not carrying guns either. So none of us have any guns. The company commander climbs in the left seat and the flight surgeon climbs in the right seat. I'm thinking, this is highly unusual. We're going out to combat zone for a medevac and we don't have any guns, and I'm flying with a flight surgeon and a commander. Something's not right. Then they slide a stretcher on with a person on that stretcher. I can't recognize who it is. I didn't find out for several minutes. But the stretcher comes up, and in a Huey, the crew chief sits on the left side in the back in a little what we call a well. So then you've got a room for two guys sit side by side. Then you've got a row of seats that go along the frame in the back of the Huey, where the people sit facing forward, or cargo, whatever. And the stretcher slides in, and the stretcher is maybe 2 feet over and 1 foot down, and Bruce Schaefer is on a stretcher. And I can't recognize him, it's a headshot. Horrendous. Can I go into detail? Horrendous, I can't recognize him. It was horrendous. We come off the helipad at our unit, fly down the beach. Chulai, we were maybe 150, 200 yards from the South China Sea. It's all beautiful beach, beautiful, beautiful. We're off to the beach, up the beach about 4 or 5 miles to the other side of Chulai, where the 321st, I think it was, hospital. Pads on top of a hill, 130 miles an hour. I mean, we're just ambulance, you know, run in there, pop up over the top of the hill, land on the pad. They come out and they run Bruce into the emergency room, and they're doing surgery. 5 minutes pass. And to this day, I can still remember the nurse. Blonde, 5'2", maybe blue eyes. I'm sorry, I'm not that accurate, but I can remember her coming out in her uniform, first lieutenant. She comes out and tells me and the commander, there's nothing we can do. The damage was too great. He's not going to make it. Would you like a cup of coffee? At first, I was angry. The hell you mean you don't want a cup of coffee? I've come to realize, it didn't take me long, come to realize that medical people, and a tremendous respect for what they do and what they had to go through. I had to go through 12 months of combat, getting shot at on not a daily, maybe a weekly basis. Somebody was shooting at us, rah-rah, big deal. But we didn't see death like that up close. Once, twice, maybe 3 times in 12 months. These folks, every day. So they have to be able to flip that switch and compartmentalize that individual and his damage and his death. They have to push it aside or they'd never make it. Okay, so she came out to inform us of what's going on and is trying to comfort us with a cup of coffee because we know our mouths are dry or whatever. And I can't remember whether it was me throwing up, whether it was me or Major Metcalf. One of us was throwing up and one of us was puking off the side of the airplane. Drugs in Vietnam. Okay, we'll make a correlation here. 60s, okay, Vietnam, the myth. Everybody in Vietnam smoked dope, did heroin and all this, and they're all crazy. Not true. Number one, I'm in an aviation unit. We get tested, urinalysis, we get flight surgeon visits, we get flight physicals every year. We're monitored pretty closely. We're grounded if we fly. With the pilots, it was, I think it was 140 hours a month was a maximum. If you put 100, it was not unusual. At 140 hour mark, you were grounded for at least 1 day. Some units you were grounded for 3 days to recover because you're worn out. With the crew chiefs and enlisted guys, I think it was 150 or 160 hours because sometimes we slept while these yahoos were flying. Aviation units. Our drug of choice, if you have to choose one, our drug of choice was alcohol. Then and now. Then in the 60s, free reign, enlisted club, NCO club, officers club, everybody went. You had to be 18 to go to Vietnam. You weren't old enough to drink in the States. Doesn't apply in Vietnam. So us 19, 20-year-olds would get snockered on 1 or 2 beers. And beer was 3.2. It's not 6%. So you had to drink a lot. And we did. I have never flown drunk, but I can't count the number of times that I have flown or flown with somebody with a humongous hangover. You're lucky to be alive. The hangover's that bad. So alcohol was what we did. There were some, and maybe numerous, I don't know. One that I do know for a fact, because he was sitting 3 feet from me, was my door gunner. Name doesn't matter, but his call sign was Father Time, because that's the way he moved. Nice. Everything he did was slow and easy and laid back, rah, rah, rah. So we get scrambled middle of the night. It's a typical, absolutely stereotypical night, darker than dark, shooting flares off so we could see. It's a dark night. The world falls apart. It's a stereotype war story. Bullets are flying everywhere, and at night you can see the red tracers or the green tracers where they're shooting at you. And I mean, we were busy that night. And I take a few seconds because it's quiet. The gun on the right side, M60s, miniguns, rockets going off, all this noise. Right side is silent. And I'm thinking, oh my God, Father Time's been hit. And I look over, and here's Father Time with his M60 machine gun sitting on his lap, and he's watching this like it's a fireworks show on 4th of July. And he's watching all these bullets flying all up, and I took we had a spare barrel for the M60. So when the barrel got hot, and they got hot because we fired 1,500,000 rounds through our gun, barrel would get hot, which makes the bullets go every which way. So you'd reach up, flip a switch, grab the gun, and we had an asbestos, like a cooking glove. Asbestos glove, you grab the barrel, pull it off, grab the spare barrel, slap it on, and you're shooting again within 2, 3, 4 seconds. I grabbed that spare barrel, reached over, and he's only 3 feet away. So I lean over here and smack him across the chicken plate, which is an armored vest, ceramic vest that we wore in front of us, weighed about 20, 25 pounds. And another one behind your back that we never wore, we sat on it so the bullets wouldn't hit us in the rear end. So you didn't have the back plate on. You got 25 ceramic, bulletproof, and I whacked him across the chest with that machine gun barrel. I said, Father Time, fools are trying to kill you, man. Oh, wow, and he snaps to it like that, turns instant warrior, and is gonna kill the world. In the Huey, I talked about rocket pod, minigun, and there's a pylon that this stuff hangs off of. Hydraulic lines that go through that pylon to work out and make the minigun move around. So whack, wakes him up. He's going to work. He's shooting out the airplane at 1 o'clock out in the front. And he's somehow found a target. And he starts shooting at the target at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. At 3 o'clock, which is right here above the pylon, he needs to lift his gun up over the pylon and continue to shoot 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock till the target's gone. He just, and he puts 3 rounds through that minigun pylon and shoots out our hydraulics. You just shot us down, fool. Well, that was the only time that I was flying that I actually had to deal with somebody that was high on marijuana, and it didn't last long because when we got back, obviously the pilots know what's going on. They didn't know he had been smoking dope, and I kind of had an idea because of the way he was acting. But the bottom line is all 3 of us, they went to the officer side of the house, and I went to the platoon sergeant. So I said, Novak, you got to do something about Father Time, man. He was high on that mission, and it doesn't matter what he was doing, smoking heroin or cocaine, it was marijuana. And the boy, he ain't my door gunner no more. I ain't flying with him, you do what you need to do. And he was short, he only had 30 or 40 days left. So Novak pulled him aside. I don't even think they might have given him an Article 15, which is non-judicial punishment, cost him 40, 50 bucks, and extraditional duty for a couple of months. Well, he's leaving in 30, 40 days. So Novak pulls him off the flight status. You're not flying no more, turn your gear in, you're going to the motor pool and work on trucks. Okay, that's Father Time. That's drugs in an aviation unit. The funniest story, behind the NCO club, a giant screen, we put sheets up and watched movies. And down in the corner of the compound was one of the guard bunkers. And it was sand. Sand was just friggin' deep. And what a couple of these guys did is they took smoke grenades, okay? They would pull the pin on the smoke grenade, and as long as you didn't release the lever, the handle, then that smoke grenade's fine and dandy. If you're holding your hand, you hold the pin down. The pin's gone, the handle's good, you're good to go. We would go down, I say they, because I never did this. They would go down in that bunker where the dope smokers, the potheads, would go down and smoke their dope, because it was right on the edge of the perimeter, so you couldn't see what was going on. They'd climb down into this bunker and they'd smoke their dope, and they'd come out and get high and go have a beer and carry on. So these guys would go down and they would bury that smoke grenade in the sand with the handle up, and then put one of these folding chairs on top of the handle, okay, to keep the handle down. And then when the potheads would go in there and light up their joint, as soon as they sat down in the chair, it would roll off. It's like a beer can with a handle on the side. and as soon as they sat in that chair, it would roll off the beer can, pop the handle, and a smoke grenade would go off. And it would take a second or two before that smoke billowed out from underneath the sand. But it would billow out, and we'd watch this, and you'd see Johnson, or you'd see those guys down. Watch the California dudes, man, the surfer dudes. Watch this. And he'd go down, they'd sit there, and about 10, 15 seconds later, you'd see purple smoke coming out of that bunker on all four whole windows, okay? So the purple smoke is just coming out, and you think, oh my God, they're gonna die. And you'd see 3 or 4 of these guys come out coughing and hacking and throwing up, and they're high as a kite anyway. And it was just hilarious to watch. That's how we, instead of beating them up or reporting them or whatever, you wanna smoke your dope, fine. But you go next door to battalion. We call them RIMPs, or rear echelon. We just call them RIMPs. Now they're called FOBs. That's for those people that stayed back in the rear, never went outside the wire, or for us, never crossed the perimeter, never got shot at, and weren't trigger pullers, rah-rah. So they were RIMPs, they were FOBs. And I have the ultimate respect for those guys, because for every trigger puller, and I don't care what kind of trigger puller you're classified as, Special Forces grunts, they're the ones that pull the trigger. Those guys that are fighting the war, everyone needs 7 of those support specialists. Finance, cooks, mechanics, motor pool, all of those guys that never had the opportunity, and a lot of them did volunteer to come up and fly mission with us in gunships or in slicks. Well, I want to be able to go home and say, I flew, because people, when you go home and say, I flew in Vietnam, I was a gunship crew chief or a gunship door gunner. I'm not going to tell you for 12 months. I'm going to tell you I did it, because that guy came out of the motor pool and flew one mission, because after he flies one mission with us in the guns, he's going back to the motor pool to stay safe. You guys are crazy as a hoot out. I ain't doing that again. So we had a lot of guys that were RIMPs or FOBs that volunteered to do that once or twice. That's why and I appreciate what they did and they offered. And if we're short, fine. But I went out of my way so as to not grab some guy from the motor pool that's never handled an M60 and put him in it, because he's going to do the same thing. And Father Time was a qualified grunt before he became a door gunner, and became a damn good door gunner. His guns always worked. The only problem I had with him was smoking dope. Bob Hope, every year, the Christmas program. He would bring celebrities, rah-rah. 67, and you spoke about 68 with, not Ruckout, now I got a, Margaret in 67, 68. In 69, I was about 80 rows back in the crowd, 7 of us, but we didn't get front seats because we weren't wounded, rah, we were late. So we're 70, 80 rows back. Got binoculars, which is fine. I can see the gold diggers, the fancy dancers, and Miss Universe, Miss America, and Connie Stevens. And this was not Christmas Eve, but it was Christmas concert, Christmas program. Connie Stevens gets up and she sings Silent Night. Okay, now we fast forward after that's over. Fast forward, Silent Night, Christmas Eve. I'm on guard duty in a bunker on our perimeter, and our perimeter overlooked a valley. I could look out, and there were fire support bases all over this valley. There must have been at least 5 or 6 within eye-shot all range. It might have been 10, 50 miles away, but that entire valley was lit up on Christmas Eve with fireworks and flares and cannons and artillery going off, shooting flares. It was just the 4th of July, okay, Christmas Eve. You could hear, I think they were piping in from our company operations. And if you had a radio on AFN, they were playing it. So Silent Night was being played just on Christmas Eve. So now we backpedal a couple of days. We're at the Bob Hope special, 80 rows back. Connie Stevens is singing Silent Night. To this day, it's like going to church and a preacher starts talking about your vices. You do this wrong or whatever, and he's talking about things that you need to do. He's talking to you. He's not talking to the congregation, okay? And you get this. Is he talking to me? So the bottom line, Connie Stevens in front of 70,000 soldiers singing Silent Night. She's singing to me. It's only me and her. So she sings Silent Night. To this day, I cannot, it's like taps. I can't make it through Silent Night. Fast forward 40 years, I'm at a thing with Gold Star Family, Snowball Express in Dallas. There's a bunch of people, rah, big party, big wing-ding. Connie Stevens was one of the guest superstars, Hollywood superstars, along with World War II, what was the pin-up girl from World War II? Marilyn Mansfield? Jane Mansfield. And she's up there, 80 years old. World War II pin-up. Connie Stevens in Vietnam, pin-up. So movie star. So the whole 9 yards, we're there, we're doing all this. So I take that opportunity to find another friend of mine that supports the vets. And the three of us go over, and she's on one side, Connie, and I'm on the other side. And we get to chit-chatting, somebody's taking a picture. And the guy that takes the picture catches me right after I finish telling the story about thanking her for singing to me in particular on, pick a date, I can't even remember what the date in December was, but let's say 17 December 1969. You sang Silent Night to me. Now she's thinking, Silent Night, September. I was Bob Hope. I was in Chulai. I was in front of 80,000. Yeah, I remember you. You were in the front row. No, I wasn't. I was 80 rows back, lady. Okay, so he caught her laughing to high heaven because she just got caught telling me, oh yeah, I remember that. No, you don't. I do, but the kicker is she's laughing, I'm laughing, and that picture is right here. So that's my Christmas story. That's my Bob Hope story. I don't care who you are, what you are, where you worked, and what you did. Mail call was a highlight of the day. The next big thing was chow hall, food, okay? Because you never got enough of the right stuff, rah. But mail call was you just crossed your fingers and you wanted to be that guy up front that got 3 or 4 letters or a whole pass of letters. You did not want to be the one that stayed in hooch because you never got mail. Or you stand in the back and everybody around you got mail and you never got mail. So the fact that your mom did what Operation Morale Booster, and you did take this message home. I appreciate it, because what she did to write letters to as many soldiers as she did and to get responses from them soldiers, she made their day. There's probably a few of them that are alive because of the letters she wrote. So once again, we get back to what you're doing, what that means to you, and I know where you're coming from, but what that means to you, and the book, by the way, is 77 letters. Okay, that book you need to read. This movie you need to see and pass the information on, please. So those two events and what you're doing is monumental. I can't thank you enough from the heart. Tell your mom she needs, I know her situation. And if you can get that message across to her, she saved lives, period. So mail call, absolute astronomical time of the day. How did we do it? They had what's called Mars, which was a radio that if you were lucky enough to get in once a month, lines were humongous. You basically had a radio, they'd call back to the States and they would landline and lock you in and you make a phone call to your house, talk to your parents. And it was one of those, hi mom, hi dad, over. Mom would come back, hi Larry, over. So each time you finish a sentence, you said over, so you move on, and you could talk like 2 or 3 minutes. The other way, that was by radio. We didn't have telephones. We didn't have internet. We didn't have none of that stuff. So you made a Mars call, or I think they might have had payphones where you could pay $5 a minute or some outrageous thing. But the lines were 3 or 4 hours long, phone call. So the other option was to take, and a lot of us, I did this, you got a cassette recorder for you youngsters, cassette recorder, battery operated, and little cassette tapes, and you put it in your cassette and you punch play and you record your music. Hi mom, dad, and you never told them all this. Oh, I got shot down yesterday, my legs all busted up, but I'm alive, I'm okay. Never went there. Everything was, oh, they're beautiful, the beaches, we went surfing today, the surf's about 3 feet high. You could literally look out through a 4-foot high wave breaking on the beach. Spectacular, Miami Beach, white sand, you could look through that 4-foot wave and see 40 or 50 feet past that. As we fly over that, and we took off and turned right and flew over South China Sea every day. Okay, when you flew over South China, the water was so crystal clear that you could see fish like sharks, hand grenade, and blow up the shark because he's going towards our beach that we were not allowed to swim on or surf. John Kernan. So bottom line is you could see these sharks going through the water. It was that clear, beautiful. That's the stuff that you told Mom and Dad about on this cassette. And then the smart moms, my mom wasn't that tactical. She didn't save those things like you did with the letters. She would take that tape, turn it over, and record over my tape her letter back to me. So I don't think we went through 5 or 10 tapes. It got to where I quit doing them after a couple of months. So that was radio, telephone, cassettes, and then the obvious, write letters. And some of us were lucky, had a girlfriend or wife that religiously wrote every day, twice a day. So it took 10 days to 2 weeks to get a letter. So you'd be 2 weeks behind your son's birth in the States. And we didn't get to come home. I don't think we did. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we got to come home for the birth of your son or daughter or a wedding. Red Cross would notify if somebody died, and they get you out pretty quick. Okay, I had a girlfriend. She lasted 3 or 4 months, and I got that infamous Dear John letter because she's getting tired of writing to G. That's why I say your mother, what she did, saved lives. Because this guy just got a letter from his girlfriend. She met up with Jody, is the guy that's a player that's back home that's going to date and steal your girlfriend while you're in Vietnam. So he got his Jody letter from his girlfriend. So he's ready to lock and load, and he gets a letter from your mom. It talks about Robert, talks about moving on. Things happen. I'm here to tell you. Your mom can't tell you about that, but she saved lives, and AmeriCal is the reason. So yes, AmeriCal was important. You will hear stories about we didn't make friendships in Vietnam because, and Bruce Schaefer and McAllister, Mac was an example. When you lost him, it hurt more than it just hurt because it was a buddy or friend or an acquaintance or just another aviator. It hurts, but when you're that close, it can push you over the edge. So a lot of folks don't make really good friends. I didn't make a lot of good friends while I was there. Yes, we went over individually instead of as they do it now. The entire 4th Infantry Division, the whole friggin' division will go together, spend a whole year together, and then leave together. Back then it was onesies, twosies. So you'd show up, you might go over at the same time, but you go to first cab, and I go to the 101st, and never to be seen again, and you come home. You're still a member of that brotherhood, or I don't even know you from Adam, but we met on the plane going over, we met on the plane coming back. You're still one of those brothers from combat, and you understand what's going on. You've been there, done that. You can listen to my stories. This guy over here could care less, all right? So there's that brotherhood and that connection, no matter how close you were. So we had a lot. I'm brothers with everybody that served in my unit. I know out of the maybe 250 guys that were in my unit in '69, out of the 250, plus or minus a few, I probably only knew maybe 100, maybe 150 of them, 200 at the most. And I knew them by their rank and their name, and that was about it, because they were in maintenance or the motor pool, passed them in the mess hall, whatever. So we weren't really acquainted. The ones I was tight with, I'm still tight with. Charlie Chatham is another Spec 5 crew chief. We flew in separate flight platoons, but we were pretty tight. And he's an Arizona Roadrunner. And so we got pretty tight. Matter of fact, I'll show you the shirt now, right? Okay. Can you see it? Okay. 4 guys, all crew chiefs. Our dope smoking buddy, California surfer dude, is the one in the middle with a mustache and no shirt, John Kernan. Pretty tight because he's from California, surfer dude. Another one sitting on the far right with a tail rotor chain, and I might get into that later. He's got a little tail rotor chain. If you crashed, you got the chain off the tail rotor and you wrapped it around it. Tells me something about you. That's Dick Sear. Dick Sear was from Ohio, Sandusky, Ohio. Well, it's the tail rotor chain is what basically it's the chain goes around a sprocket and turns the tail rotor in the back of the aircraft. If you get shot down or crash in a Huey, you're allowed to take that tail rotor chain off and take a section of it and make a bracelet out of it, and or a ring, whatever. But the common thing was to have it. So Dick Sears wearing his tail rotor chain bracelet, and Sandusky, Ohio. He was one of those tough guy and back at the home, and I can't even remember what crime he committed, but he's in front of the judge. And back then you were drafted, you enlisted, or you were in front of some judge and says, here's your sentence. I suggest you go down and see a recruiter and enlist, or I'm going to send you to prison for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. I'm going to send you to prison, or you're going to go join the military. And we all know what that means, okay? Dick Sear did something, the judge is in front of him, says, on a heartbeat, I'm going to join the Army. So he shows up in Vietnam, and we get to talking, and lo and behold, the reason he's in Vietnam is because he didn't want to go to jail for a year. I think he was facing a year, maybe 2. He said, I'll just join the Army for 3 and spend a year in Vietnam, and then I'm done, okay? That's Dick Sear. Curlin was even though he was a door gunner, he came from the infantry, so he did his fair share of smoking a joint, I'm sure. California, surfer, Southern California, so he's our surfer dude from California. And then Chatham was from Arizona, and myself. Chatham, I'm tight with. We correspond. He was one of the crew chiefs that went to our reunion in Florida with VHPA. We chit-chat weekly, at least. Dick Sear we lost 2 years ago, and Curlin, I lost track of Curlin, but Curlin was Chatham's door gunner. So that picture was taken in 1969. The 4 of us were all in the same, Chatham and Curlin were in 2nd Flight Platoon. Dick and I were in 1st Flight Platoon. So we're all sucking down the suds, and somebody took that picture, and Chatham made t-shirts for us all. So that's where the t-shirt comes from. And I'm tight for the most part with those guys. A couple other names that pop up. Okay, now we're getting into this. I'll make it through this story. Corky Rose was a Spec 5 crew chief, got into Vietnam maybe 2 weeks before me. Larry Keeler was another 2-tour. He was on his 2nd tour. He was with 1st Cav, got wounded pretty bad. Went home, came back 2nd tour. Larry Keeler, Spec 5, another crew chief. Both in Vietnam within 2 weeks of each other and me, okay? And again, a close relationship because they were in a flight platoon. We didn't interact on a daily basis, but mess hall, flight line, rah-rah. So we were pretty tight. Best friends, I wouldn't call us best friends, but friends for sure. And John Barrett, I did not know. I knew his name, and I knew he was a door gunner, okay? So it's Keeler, Rose, Barrett, Lieutenant Stockton, who was 2-3 weeks, new guy in the country, 3 weeks, a month at the most. And then D. Hayden. D. Hayden, I had flown as his crew chief in the Slick Platoon for a good 2 or 3 months when I first got there. So I knew D. Hayden pretty close. He's a good warrant officer. Pretty good pilot, but he had issues we'll get into. So those are the 5 guys on board aircraft 6617-206. We had flare duty, which is a slick that we load up with 50 flares, and the flares were about 3 or 4 feet long and about 3 or 4 feet, about this big around, and had a lanyard and a timer, so you set the timer for 2 minutes, and you set this timer for 30 seconds. And those timers, once they were activated, you threw the flare out of the Huey, okay? The flare lanyard was about 10 feet, so it got past the skids, And as it got past the skids, that lanyard would yank, activate those 2 timers. One of them set off the parachute, pop up, and now the flare is falling down with the parachute. And the second would ignite the flare, and it would burn for the amount of time you set on that timer. That's how we did flare missions. And we throw these 50 flares out at the appropriate altitude and time and rah, light up the battlefield. Okay, at any given time, there were 3 or 4 flares out over the battlefield. We did that nightly. Every night somebody was on flare duty. Airplane parked right in front of the operations, run out there, jump in it, go fly. So it's 15 December 1969. Everybody's getting hammered at the club, and Keeler and Rose are supposed to start clearing the next day. Clearing takes 2 or 3 days. They're going home. Basically, going home tomorrow. They're leaving the unit tomorrow. They're going to start clearing. They're going home in 3 days. Been there for 12 months. They decide they're going to fly one more mission. So they run to operations, run, walk, I don't care. They go to operations and they tell Steve Kirchenfall, the operations officer, this one's ours. Tell the crew chief we're going to replace them. Keep the gunner, Barrett. Keep the gunner, and because it usually took 2 crew chiefs to handle the flares. And Keeler and I are going to do this mission. So off they go. Hayden's flying, and his only problem with flying is he would never, we call them TAC tickets. Instrument, nowadays it's a standard. Everybody gets instrument qualified. That means you can go out and punch into the clouds with no visual reference, and you fly using the instruments only. So the bottom line is he had a problem flying instruments, didn't fully come in. And the problem with that is you've got to be able to trust your instruments, and if the instruments say you're in a left bank, you're turning and you're descending. That's what the instruments tell you. But if you're in a turn and turning around like this, the inner ear canal senses that, and it tells you you're in a left bank and you're descending. Okay, if you get, it's called vertigo. If you get vertigo, and your ear tells your brain tells your body, you're descending and you're turning left. Okay, your instruments say you're straight and level, or the reverse. The instruments tell you you're turning and you're descending, but you just came out of a left descending, now you're level, and now your ears are telling you you're right descending. Ignore this. Look at your instruments. He didn't do that. So they took off, and we got a gunship platoon that took off, turned left over the ammo dump, and went out, and they weren't 5 miles, 10 miles south of where we were. Infantry in contact that night, needed flares. Terrible, terrible weather. Thunderstorm, 2 hours later was clear. But when this mission went down, you need to go now. And the commander had already told, Hayden can't fly that mission. I don't want anybody flying until this weather is cleared. So, and this happened about the time Captain Mothersbaugh is taking off and making that left turn, because he knew better than turn right. Turns left, goes out, dodges the storm, goes out, and he calls back and says, launch the flare ship if you can. We need, because the clouds are bad, and the flare ship can come out and punch a flare, let the flare land on the ground so that we can see the ground and find out where the good guys are. We don't care where the bad guys, we're just going to shoot up the world. Okay, we just need to ignite the ground. And so Hayden jumps in the airplane with these 5 guys. They take off and turn right instead of left. And as they turn right, they're over the South China Sea. And if it's at night, it's what killed John F. Kennedy Jr. When you're over at night, over land or over water, it's smooth, there's no moon, you don't have a horizon, you can't tell attitude, depth perception. Over here on the left, on the ammo, see the ammo dump, you see the lights, you can actually see. So when he turned right, he lost track of the ground and the water and the clouds, and he punches into the clouds, and the airplane is doing this, and he's ignoring his instruments. And what he did is he flew up, turned it straight up like this, flipped around upside down, and when he came out of the clouds, they were only 600, 700, 800 feet. When he came out of the clouds, he was inverted upside down, and when he snapped it back upright, he severed the mast and lost his whole rotor system. And they dove into the ground with a full load of fuel and a full load of 50 flares, and they hit the ground probably 120 miles an hour. Obvious. Killed them all instantly, we're sure. And that's what the family here is. They were all killed instantly. So Mothersbaugh sees, as soon as he turned right, Mothersbaugh knew something bad was going to happen. So he sees him come out of the clouds and sees the explosion, lands 50, 100 feet away. Mother's ball and I can't remember who's Lindsay, I think it's Lindsay, jump out and run in. Mother's ball didn't get burned very bad. Lindsay got second and third degree burns on his hands and his arms. Mother's ball got there and he tried to pull the two pilots out. Lindsay went after the crew chiefs. Neither one of them. Mother's ball got the door open and jettisoned, but when he went to pull, I think it was Stockton. When he went to pull Stockton out, and I apologize for the graphic, but you need to hear this. When he went to pull Stockton out of his seat, because they were both dead, but he didn't know that. He was toast, barbecued. So he's pulling on skeletal bones, and he couldn't get him out of the seat because it's horrendous. In London, he tried getting in the back with the crew chiefs. 3 more days and they'd have been home. So am I tight? Yeah, that's my answer to when I go to VA. I don't go to VA. When I go to the hospital and they have standard questions they ask you. Do you feel safe? Are you concerned with your mental welfare? Are you suicidal? You know, those kind of questions. Do you ever suffer PTSD or trauma? Trauma. You want to hear my trauma? And I tell them that story. So the nurse. And now I've told so many times I can usually get through it. But when you're the nurse asking me that question, I'll give you trauma. I'll give you PTSD. Do I have it? I don't think so. Probably. But can I deal with it? I like to think I can. I set it aside. But yeah, do I have reason to think I might have or could have? Yeah, that's my trauma. That's my story. Those 5 guys died because of weather and bad decisions on a pilot's part. And that's not fair to Hayden because he's a good pilot. He lost it, got vertigo. And we all get, I've had vertigo 3 or 4 times. And my co-pilot is pulling me out of it. The instruments, we're diving, turn left, straight and level, whatever. So that was just an accident. Nowadays we got wire cutters. We can hit wires and we'll cut the wires and keep going. But it doesn't keep you from hitting mountains. What's this rock doing up in these clouds? So the bottom line is you descend to a safe altitude, and if it keeps getting worse, then you either land, which is what we normally did, and wait for the weather to clear, or you climbed into those clouds, committed to fly instruments, and once you do that, you're okay. Because now we've got the training to do that. So, Snowball Express is a 501c3 organization put together by Southwest Airlines back in 2004. I can't even remember when it started. But it started with a Southwest airline pilot wanting to fly a couple of Gold Star families into Disneyland. It mushroomed into, I'm going to take an airplane full. How about this? I'm going to take 5 airplanes full. Gold Star families, again, is somebody lost. And it's, if I had to pitch it to you, you lost your husband in Iraq. It doesn't matter what war. And you've got 3 kids. My pitch to you, and you don't know me from Adam, what my background is, but if you will come with us, we will take you to Disneyland, 5 days and 4 nights, put you in a 5-star hotel, provide security, safety, medical, any kind of mobility issues, special needs kids, I don't care. I don't care how many kids you've got. You bring them all, okay? They got to be at least 5 years old because we don't want you spending time with a year-old or a toddler and taking time away from your adolescents or your teenagers. Because the entire week you're going to be at Disneyland has nothing to do with your hero, because they're all heroes. We don't have enough time to do 1,800 hero stories, so the object is to let your kids know, I'll make it through this, 1,800 volunteers. Now, 1,800 volunteers, a whole week, we're going to take care of every one of your needs possible to make these kids understand we do care. We will remember. We will carry on your dad's legacy. You can smile. You can have fun. You can have Christmas. You can have birthdays and carry life on. That's what your dad would have wanted, or your mom. That's what we do. That's what Snowball does.
Did that for 3 or 4 years, Disneyland, Southwest Airlines in California. They decided, American Airlines picked it up. Dallas-Fort Worth is their headquarters. They moved the whole operation to Dallas after the 4th year or so. So I got involved in 2006, 2007, and volunteered, and my job was to put the local Fort Hood, Killeen, Temple, Texas, within 50 miles. Put those Gold Star families on an airplane from Killeen to Dallas-Fort Worth. What American did was they had 6 separate chartered airlines, extra airplanes in their fleet, volunteer crews and flight attendants. They would fly from 6 different, all the key locations, Seattle, doesn't matter, 6 different locations. These 6 airplanes will all converge on Dallas-Fort Worth. Okay, they had snowball call signs, so the ATC all across the nation would call the pilots, clear them through the airspace, welcome them home, thank you, and say something, and the pilots would put that radio traffic on the airplane intercom so the kids could hear ATC thank them. B-52s would make formation flights with this airliner, rock their wings. So we make those kids smile and take them to a Mavericks game, a Cowboys game, a Stars game, the Nutcracker, ballet, Fort Worth Stockyards, the rodeo, Six Flags, stuff like that. Just have fun. You can do anything. The rules that we told the families, the adults, you got one chaperone. The rules are they don't break any laws, okay? They can do pretty much anything they want, but they don't break laws. There were no drugs allowed, no alcohol allowed, no matter what because some of these are teenagers. 18 was the age out, but you're still teenagers. And they can't break your rules at home. If they do, that's up to you, but go ahead unless it's really significant. We'll take care of all of that. Those are the rules. Just don't hammer the kid, don't spank the kid because he jumped in the elevator and pushed all 40 buttons on the elevator. Don't give the kid a spanking because he and this all happened, he rode his skateboard through the middle of this lobby of a hotel that runs $500 a night for a room, all right? Let the kids have fun for that week. That's Snowball Express, and I did that for almost 10 years. Gary Sinise was involved on year 2 when Monsoon and a couple other folks went, Monsoon and a couple other folks from California. Yes, Roy White, Monsoon, William Miamaga went to Gary's thing, and they didn't even finish their little pitch. They wanted him to help out because they know what he does with vets. Didn't even finish the pitch. Didn't even finish the video. He said, I'm in. What do you need me to do? So every year, Gary Sinise would come to Skyball, which is a fundraiser held in like November. We'd raise $2-3 million in one weekend for Snowball. That's Jim Palmershine. Okay, so American Airlines would hold this 3-day event. Gary, the Beach Boys, Winona Rudd, or Judd, George Strait, Beach Boys, who else? All these superstars donated their time to come and entertain our folks. Special Forces, the Marine Corps, Special Operations guys, Green Berets, they all had their night on Skyball. So these guys all show up with a 4-hour fundraiser, $2 million, blah, blah, blah. I'm in. So every year, Gary Sinise would put on a show with his Lieutenant Dan Band. And Gary Sinise, they have since moved, last year, they moved the whole operation to Disney World, where he's got a headquarters. And now they do this in Florida at Disney World. And he is super. His foundation builds houses, smart houses for soldiers that are disabled. He does a number of things. But Snowball, that's his heart and soul. I don't care how many, he came here for an event at Fort Hood. He was scheduled to speak with a 3-star general that commanded Fort Hood at the time. Doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter when it was, but he came here and put on, I think it was when 4th ID was coming back from Iraq, Afghanistan, whatever, and he puts on a concert. I had arranged for a helicopter to come in and land at 3 Corps headquarters to pick him up and take him to this rodeo that we were doing about 2 hours away. And we had to cancel that because he had to meet with the Gold Star families. So he met with, there were a couple of hundred Gold Star families there. And if it's a Gold Star family and this entire sidewalk is filled with a line of Gold Star families, those are the only people he's going to talk to. I don't care how big a fan you are, you're not going to get his signature. So he's got all these kids, all these Gold Star families, and he's got this appointment. Worst job in the world is to be his handler with a watch and an 8 o'clock appointment with a 3-star general. And there was a couple other generals too. But hey, Gary, wrap it up. However he does this, wrap it up, let's go. And Gary kept blowing him off. And finally he called the guy over. He says, go call General Johnson, General Smith, General X. Go call the general and tell him we're going to be late. He says, we're not going to make it. I still got 100 kids to talk to. That's Gary Sinise, and that's Gold Star families. And you don't blow him off. Yeah, he came out here when we did the flags for reef, whatever, and gave a maybe 2-3 minute talk. That was it, because he had to leave and go somewhere else. He just stopped here on the way out. So he comes by here, gives a little presentation. Everybody and their mother, okay, wants to meet him, get his autograph and all this. He's got a van right there. My job that day was to get him from his seat with a VIP section out to his van and out on the road, because he's got to catch an airplane right out. So I'm pushing people out of the way left and right. Make a hole, make a hole. Gold Star. Now, Larry, make a hole. And he'd stop, talk to Gold Star. And then get done, sign autograph, rah, rah, rah. Make a hole, make a hole, make a hole. We're at the gate. And this Yahoo that I had pushed out of the way at least 2 or 3 times. No, he's not going to speak. He didn't have the time. And then the guy starts giving me attitude. Well, you just stop and talk to that lady. That's because she's a Gold Star mom. And it was his kid that he signed the autograph for. He's not going to go. So the guy got mad, jumped on his Harley, drove all the way around. Gary's in a van. Both doors are open. The guy pulls up on his Harley, revs it up as Gary gets into the van on the left side. That's where I'm at, holding people back. Gary gets into the van, and this guy rolls up, revs his throttle a couple of times. Can you autograph my bike? And Gary, yeah, we got a minute. The guy wanted to talk and carry on. Signed my hat, and he signed his bike. And now I'm back on the other side. Move on. That's Gary Sinise and what he does. AmeriCal Division, 23rd Infantry Division, the only division that's fought in 3 wars, all of them in the jungle. And they were AmeriCals, American of New Caledonia. They were established, started in Australia, World War II, and 23rd Infantry Division. People of significance, why I bring this up, is because it's a blue shield with 4 stars, and it's underneath the Southern Cross. So it's an installation, the Southern Cross, down Southern Hemisphere, and that's where the patch initiates, or comes from. Significant people in that: General Schwarzkopf, Norman Schwarzkopf, the Bear, Desert Storm, that whole 9 yards, he ran it, won it, whiz bang. He was an advisor to an Arvin Ranger Battalion and a commander of an infantry battalion in Vietnam. And I might get the years mixed up, but it was basically between the two of them, between 67 and 70. Norman Schwarzkopf spent 2 tours in AmeriCal or with an associated unit in AmeriCal. And we just lost him. General Colin Powell was also an advisor or a company, I think he was a company commander. Then he was an advisor and executive adjutant for the commanding general of AmeriCal Division. Matter of fact, one of his awards is for pulling the commanding general out of a Huey that crashed. They crashed and destroyed the airplane, and a bunch of people got hurt. And Colin Powell pulled the general out of the airplane. So those are 2 significant names. The other one, and nobody knows that. Well, a lot of people know that, but they don't acknowledge that. Who do you remember from AmeriCal with that patch? Cali. What's his first name? Doesn't matter. Lieutenant Cali. In April, May of 68, because this was 69. May of 68, the Batanga Peninsula, just south of Chulai, was our AO, our area of operations. That entire peninsula was extremely controlled by the VC, the Viet Cong. Anything that went on in that peninsula, good or bad, was because the VC controlled it. That place was littered. You couldn't walk 10 feet without stepping on a booby trap or a mine of some sort. It was that ugly. We hated flying on the Batanga Peninsula. My Lai was right in the middle of that Batanga. 5th of the 46th was the infantry battalion that had responsibility for that AO. So 546 goes in and they lose, and I can't recall the time frame, let's say a week, 2 weeks. They lost at least 5-10 guys through booby traps and mines and punji sticks. You dig a hole that's 2 feet deep and you put a bunch of excrement covered or any kind of bacteria in the world on this sharpened stick and then stick them in the ground. So when you step into that hole, your leg gets punctured, your foot gets punctured by all this bacteria, and you not necessarily die, but you lost a leg, or it's going to take 5 guys to take care of this wounded soldier. So the place was just full of that stuff. So when all these losses popped up, the infantry unit wants revenge. Cali lost control of his soldiers. That company, or that platoon, killed, and again, you run the numbers, I like to believe it was only between 1 and 200. I've heard numbers as high as 500. It doesn't matter. 10 would have been too many. 1 would have been too many. They went bonzo. They were burning, and burning hooches ain't a big deal in Vietnam. That's how we prevented the enemy from having a place to stay. Burning hooches doesn't bother me. Killing innocent people, and you're talking men, women, old men, young. There were no military age males that got killed. Well, I'm sure there were, but kids and moms and grandmas and old men, hundreds of them, murdered them on the side. The women were raped and mutilated and tortured. So the bottom line, that's Lieutenant Cali losing track of his men. They all went crazy, and he didn't stop it. Captain Medina was a company commander that was not on that operation, but he didn't stop it. The battalion commander didn't stop it. Of course, at that level,
That was just one issue. That was one terrible.
that's what everybody remembers about AmeriCal. So from that incident, we, the entire division, past and present, became baby killers. And the only bad thing I've had, as far as being treated improperly, I came home from Vietnam wearing that AmeriCal patch. And I had 5 buddies that we hung out in high school, Christian brothers, because that's the kind of whiskey, or that's the kind of alcohol that one or all of our parents drank. So we were the Christian brothers, not because we were religious, because of the brandy that my parents drank. So out of the 5 guys, 1 got a student deferment for college, 1 got a deferment because he was married with kids, 1 got a deferment because he had some sort of psoriasis or foot disease or health reasons. So they're all 4F, 2S, something like that. And the only 2 of us that I went, obviously I was 1A, draftable. So I went in the Army. My other buddy went in the Navy, and he didn't make a career, but he went in the Navy, was flying submarine patrol craft. So I'd get a letter from him talking about how tough it is to fly from San Jose up the west coast of California, Oregon, and Washington for 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and then turn around looking for enemy submarines. Ha 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 ha. Well, fine, I just climbed out of a crashed airplane and got shot down. What are you doing tomorrow? So those were the 5, those are the things. The one that got the student deferment moved on, fast forward, he goes to college, he gets a degree, becomes a law enforcement, and works on a government task force for the governor of Arizona, anti-drug, so he did real well. His mom was about as Australian as you could get, loved that lady, everybody, all of us. My mom's your mom. So all of us had 5 moms. So, bless her heart. She came home, and Dwayne was with her, and we had a little get together, and then Dwayne asked me the infamous question, so how many babies did you kill, or Mr. AmeriCal? Push my buttons. So no fisticuffs exchange, because we're like brothers. We're really good. And I told him, no uncertain terms, you're off key, you're way out of the park. Don't go there again. And that's all it is. Like Lowell said, go there and you're an innocent enemy. My best friend all through high school just lost it. I'll see you later. So I didn't see him for a good 10 years. Kind of stayed in touch with his mom because we loved her. Well, she's my mom. So off and on for a couple of years. So about 10, 15 years passed, and I bumped into her at a store somewhere, hometown. And she said, Dwayne's up in Sacramento. I call him come down so you can visit with him. I don't know if I want to do that. Yeah, you need to do that. So she's the reason we got it back to, and hi there, thanks, and rah, 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 what are you doing, what are you doing? Back and forth, and great seeing you again, I love you, and don't hold back, we'll stay in touch. No, that ended. But that's the only anti-Vietnam comeback that I got, one time. Every single word in Aircraft 206 by Zach Huckabee, just like The Price of Freedom, and you can find The Price of Freedom on YouTube by Zach Huckabee. Every word in both those songs is to the point, accurate, and truthful. And 206, every single word. It's like, here's my words, Zach, put them in a song. So that Aircraft 206, he's going to sing that at my funeral, right here. Yeah, I already am.
All right, let's look at this one first.